to the Town of Burlington webinar. I'm Rick Kaplan from the New England Real Estate Journal, and I want to introduce our moderator for today, which I think she disappeared.
It disappeared?
No picture, Stephanie. Stephanie Cronin from the Middlesex 3 Coalition. She's invisible at the moment, but we will make her reappear in a couple of seconds. Well, you know, while we're waiting for Stephanie to figure out technical difficulties, I want to introduce Melisa Tintocalis from Burlington, Mass. Did I say your last name right, Melissa?
You did, Rick. That's right on.
I'm proud of myself. Peter Abair from MassEcon, and Lynn Tokarczyk, and Lynn is with Lynn. You're going to have to tell your company name. It's so long for me.
Business Development Strategies. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Lynn. And I want to thank Melissa. Melissa has inspired us to do this webinar, and it's been very well received by so many people. A lot of people are interested in see what's going on in the town of Burlington. So once we can get Stephanie back in the picture.
It wouldn't be a webinar without somebody having internet problems, right? So Pete, it's something we need to all address. So I'm sorry, my apologies. I don't want to. Where are we, Rick?
Where are we? Well, we're at the point where you take over, Stephanie.
Okay, all right. Well, again, my apologies. I'm Stephanie Cronin. I'm the executive director of the Middlesex 3 Coalition. I'm looking forward to a great discussion today on current and future opportunities in Burlington. For those of you who don't know the Middlesex 3 Coalition, we're a public-private partnership which brings together business development leaders to improve economic development along the Route 3 corridor. If you're interested in learning more about the coalition, please check us out on middlesex3.com. That's about enough for Middlesex 3. Today, we're focused on the town of Burlington, and we have a lot to discuss. We have a great panel. I know Rick introduced you briefly, but I want to go back. I want to introduce you because I want to. And first, I'd like to welcome our panel and then give them an opportunity to provide some updates on the work that they're doing and projects that are happening in Burlington. First, I want to welcome Melisa Tintocalis, Economic Development Director for the town of Burlington. And although Melissa is relatively new to Burlington, she's certainly no stranger to economic development, which is why she really has hit the ground running, even during the pandemic. And we'll hear more about that in a few minutes. Speaking of no stranger to economic development, I want to introduce Lynn Tokarczyk from Business Tax Incentive Consultant at Business Development Strategies. And a full disclosure, I used to work with Lynn at the Mass Office of Business Development and worked for Lynn at Business Development Strategies. So I think we'll be hearing more about what a wonderful employee I was in a few minutes. But also I'd like to introduce our final panelist, Peter Abair, who also is relatively new to economic development, to his role as executive director at MassEcon, but no stranger to economic development, another MOBD alum, as well as his numerous roles at MassBio. So with that, I want to hand it over to you, Pete, to kickstart the conversation on what's happening at MassEcon and where do we see the growth and the trends.
Great. Well, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, I have just a few introductory slides about MassEcon and about what we're working on. So, MassEcon, first of all, we've been around for a number of years. We're in our 26th year now. While we are a full partner with our partners in state government and state economic development, we are a statewide nonprofit economic development organization. So we are not, in fact, part of state government. We are supported by memberships and sponsorships. And as you'll see on the screen now, really the core of our mission is to help bring companies to Massachusetts, be an advocate for Massachusetts, and help companies here grow. So moving on to the next slide. How do we do all that? So what do we actually do? We market Massachusetts beyond its borders, and our focus really is corporate site selectors here in the US and around the world. That's our focus in terms of our marketing, because they work on behalf of so many companies that are considering site location decisions. We are the statewide site location service provider. So we provide site location services to state government on behalf of state government here in Massachusetts. And I'll dive into that a little bit more in a second. We sit on a mountain of data, both economic and business intelligence data, and we provide this to the public and to our membership. And we are a membership organization, so we dip into that expertise within the membership to assist in our locational decision-making projects. And finally, we also recognize businesses over the course of the year that have made that decision to grow here in Massachusetts. So on to site location services, the next slide. This is where we're at this year, to give you some idea. We have worked on 42 projects. In some cases, we are the lead organization working on a site location project. In other cases, we're assisting. But in total square footage sought, this is through September, 3.1 million square feet among those 42 projects, 277 acres. That really pertains to those that were looking for land sites in Massachusetts, and reported potential jobs for 4,007. To give a little bit of context for that, last year was a very busy year for MassEcon in providing this site location assistance. And last year we had 52 projects the entire year. So, already in September with an entire quarter to go, this volume is really unexpected considering the pandemic. We hadn't anticipated that. We thought things would become slow, but in fact, we are as busy as we have ever been. And in some cases, sort of reaching historic levels in terms of the volume at this particular moment. There's a lot going on in the marketplace among companies looking for sites in Massachusetts. So on to the next slide. So just again, to provide a little detail on those site location projects, lead origin in the upper left-hand corner, about 55% are from within state. And so these are companies looking to grow here in Massachusetts. These percentages in terms of out of state and international are a little bit different in that we do have, in terms of percentages, a little bit higher in terms of out of state and international inquiries that we're working on at MassEcon. Lead sources, this is about where it is historically. Our state partners involve us in about 60% of the projects we're in, but 40% come directly to us at MassEcon. Looking at projects by industry and use, we're seeing a lot of manufacturing, distribution, life science projects underway. And where this, again, is a little bit different than in recent years, we have a few more manufacturing inquiries than we have had traditionally, and definitely more distribution. So warehouse distribution projects are up this year. When we look at projects by region of Massachusetts, the differences versus 2019, especially as we're seeing more statewide searches, so not connected with a particular region, and we're seeing more in the central region, so really sort of more outside of Greater Boston. You see the Greater Boston there percentage down from where it was in 2019. So definitely a little more interest outside of Greater Boston. We define the Greater Boston region. We use the Mass MOBD mapping for that. So it's really sort of the inner suburbs and Boston, Cambridge itself. So those are, there's a little bit of definitely some differences that we're seeing between 2019 and 2020. Moving on to the next slide. So this is my last slide in terms of an introduction, and you can go to our website at massecon.com, and this is a tool that anybody can use at our Ready Mass 100 web pages, and you can pick a property that happens to be listed on that, and we picked one in Burlington, and just did and again, this is a tool that you can use. We can assist folks that want to use this tool as well. 45-minute drive to Burlington, and within that 45-minute drive, that 45-minute drive time to Burlington, when you look at the educational attainment of the workforce, over 50% with a bachelor's degree or higher. Now, Massachusetts, of course, has the highest percentage of residents with a bachelor's degree or higher. It's 42.9%. That's substantially better than other states. And in this area, in that, again, that 45-minute drive time Burlington, you actually have more than that. So, even exceeding, the state average, so 50%. So it's a very strong workforce, and that's an important driver in terms of considerations to where companies, businesses want to be. And the slide the table on the bottom, these are sample export industries in a 30-mile radius. Again, that's another thing you can use with the tool we have. And we just focused on some specific export industries: professional, scientific, technical services, manufacturing, banking, information, and just to give a sense for the strength of the workforce in this region. And workforce is the primary driver for locational decision making. And you see really robust workforce. And the entire workforce in this 45-minute drive time is 2.4 million. So it's a large workforce, and it's a well-educated workforce, and centered on Burlington. So these are strong points for Burlington, strong points for this region. And as we work with projects that are considering Massachusetts, workforce is quite often the #1 reason that they're considering Massachusetts as a location, or considering a particular place in Massachusetts as a location. So I'll wrap up there and toss it back to you, Stephanie.
No, and thank you. That's a great overview, a great way to set the scene. And we're going to dig into some of that data a little in a little while. But just to give you a bit of a plug for membership as well too, because we just recently became a member of MassEcon, and I have to say, we all know that in these times it's difficult to make those connections and keep those conversations going. And you guys have done a great job in really helping to connect stakeholders. So we've enjoyed being a member of MassEcon.
Thank you, Stephanie.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Melisa to hear more of what's going on in Burlington. What has Burlington done over the last year to expand opportunities, assist businesses, real estate stakeholders, to create economic development opportunities in the town of Burlington?
Well, thank you, Stephanie, and thank you to Rick and the New England Real Estate Journal to just have this opportunity to kind of share what's going on in Burlington, which is kind of exciting. Rocco, I know you're manning some of the slides, so we'll wait to get this guy up, which is just my intro. So thank you all for kind of carving out some time to hear what's going on. Obviously, the pandemic has been extremely difficult on, folks losing their jobs, small business. But, what I'd like us to focus on, and what I'm excited actually to be part of this team here, is looking at the bright spots and, really planning for the upswing. And I think that's what's been, at least has drawn me to the team here in Burlington. As Stephanie mentioned, I worked in Lexington and Somerville before that. And I think, with the approach that Burlington has, there's a real smart growth effort here in terms of retrofitting suburbia and what that means for the future, which is really palpable when you go kind of through some of these things I'm going to show you. If we go to the next slide, I think I tried my best here to really give you 5 things. Like if you had to take away 5 things from this webinar, it's kind of these, and I laid these little as simple as I could. But number 1, that we're open and ready to be a partner with our industries. I think that's critical given the pandemic. We quickly pivoted, like a lot of private sector entities had to, with virtual meetings, kind of getting up to speed with technology. We permitted, even during the shutdown, a restaurant and a special permit through some challenging times. But it speaks to the work ethic in town, and it speaks to our commitment to our community. Number 2 is new zoning. There's a lot of exciting, as much as you can get excited about new zoning, there's a lot of new zoning in town that I really want to review with you, in particular around the life science and retail centers. Number 3 would be our water investment. Big investment, and I think it can obviously go kind of overlooked in some ways, but it is the foundation for capacity and growth. And I think, I'll highlight a little bit more about each of these, but that is a big investment that we're doing here, and we're showing real leadership on that. The next 2 is just something I don't want us to lose track of, especially because I think there's a lot of talk around our research institutions, but right here in Burlington, like not even the backyard, right in the front yard, there is Northeastern's University, and they call it the Innovation Campus at Burlington. Super exciting stuff going on there, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And then the 5th thing is our industry clusters. Not only do we have existing industry clusters, the town, the leadership, the administration, they're working on really targeting in on those industry clusters, in particular life science and additive manufacturing as 2 of the main industry clusters. And they're obviously really exciting in and of their own. And I'd like to, touch base on a couple businesses that are doing some great things in town. So with that, I'll go to the first slide. And this, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I do really want to give people a sense, because a lot of questions have come up on how the community has dealt with the economic downturn and how that's impacted Burlington. And like many communities, our hotel and meals tax revenue is significantly down, more than 50%. But I think what we have going for us, and I've seen this, having been in a few communities now, there's been a real strong ethos on conservative revenue budgeting over the last several years. And so with that, we've been able to absorb some of the impacts from the pandemic and really maintain a high level of service given the downturn in some of the receipts. And where we're at, like I said, is probably kind of a common theme, but we're planning for the future. We're planning for the upswing. I think there's a lot of lessons learned from 2008 in the recession, where the town ended up working with private industry and laid some regulatory framework for what we see now in 3rd Avenue and the district. So that's what we're focused on. I think just to reiterate the fact that we're open and ready, even before the pandemic, there was an investment in this position, not to take anything for granted, really. So they invested in an economic development office. They invested obviously in this position, which, like I said, I'm excited because, it's about kind of this retrofitting suburbia and kind of, getting excited of what that means for resiliency in a community and the long-term, growth potential, but in a smart way. And we've done that also on a very practical level with development. Our planning director holds weekly development coordination meetings, so you can get all the departments in one room, talk to them, get their feedback on any project at any stage. Obviously, now we have our platinum status with MassBio, kind of showing that our staff's ready and we have sites. And like I'll touch on a little bit is our zoning. We have some exciting zoning. And I don't want this to get lost. I think we have a very comprehensive approach to economic development. And one thing we're doing right now is called, it's a workforce development grant specifically for life science and healthcare training for people who've lost their jobs during the pandemic. And this is a pilot program. We're working with MassHire in Bedford, and it's allowing people to do that career pivot if they have been in some industry that's been really impacted and they're looking for some industry with growth. We're investing in our people as well, not just, you know, the physical developments. And lastly, it's our infrastructure investments. We'll talk about the water, but we're not, you know, we were built mostly in the 60s around the car out here. So sidewalks were not as ingrained in our development. So last year we allocated $1 million to a sidewalk improvement plan, improvements, I should say, and we created a sidewalk improvement plan. And now we're starting to explore also some bike connections to Lexington and Bedford. So that's how our organization is, you know, kind of dealing with the pandemic and looking forward. So the next one, I'll move us to like kind of the zoning slide. New zoning slide. Well, new zoning, I should say. This is our number 2 that I want you guys to take away from this, that we have between 2019 and 2020, we have adopted significant new zoning around life science. We have areas that are by right. We've increased the FAR, and we've really articulated what we want in the life science and where we want it. So they're new definitions. And we've even expanded, as of earlier this year in January 2020, we've expanded where this is possible. So we added 3 parcels, and those 3 parcels alone about kind of have a potential for 300,000 square feet of development for life science now. And, you know, kind of on the precipice of preparing for this today, I was thinking like, okay, where are we at with these? Number 1, Summit Drive has submitted a site plan. So that's in the process and getting traction. Number 2, 60 Blanchard Road just got a new tenant, Abair, which is actually going to be providing clean wet labs for contract manufacturing. And the 3rd one is still out there and they're moving along, but that's pretty kind of goes to show you that if you're kind of setting your table, you're inviting the folks to come. And I think that's been a real exciting kind of outcome of the work that had been done to date. And I don't want to forget about our retailers. There's been a lot of talk, obviously amenities in Burlington have been a driving factor and a real benefit, not only for Burlington businesses, but for Lexington, Bedford. We are an amenity hub, and we want to acknowledge the changing face of retail, but we don't want to let that kind of also dominate our landscape. So just recently, the planning director, Kristen Kasner, working with the planning board, had laid out a recommendation that town meeting adopted, which was essentially allowing for some distribution at retail centers, but as an accessory use. So that really kind of shows that, number 1, we're willing to be flexible and understand the changing dynamic of what's needed out there, but we don't want it to dominate our landscape and become, you know, fulfillment centers necessarily at all at this point. So I think that kind of just demonstrates between these 2 new zoning initiatives where the town is really coming to the table and being proactive. So we'll go to the next slide. Yes, thank you. The water investment. So a little like zoning, harder to get excited about, but a big, big investment. This is super exciting for folks, only because what's more important than the capacity for clean quality water and the redundancy? And that's what we're doing. So we're spending nearly $26 million on improving the water quality and access to the MWRA. And you know, this alone kind of demonstrates, I think, Burlington's leadership. It has benefits for Lexington and Bedford as well, but it's a demonstration of looking to the future and preparing for capacity. Even under our analysis, we have about 14 development sites in different stages of kind of the pipeline, but That's about 1 million square feet of development if we look at that at over 14 sites. And what we need to do to prepare for that is have reliable, redundant water systems, especially given our climate, evolutions. So I think this is really exciting. But I'll go on to our next takeaway, which is number 4, and that is a Northeastern University. I was able to go with Peter Boynton on a tour of the campus here, which is literally just up the road. And that facility is just amazing. Not only because, the building is beautiful, but I think what they're really trying to create there is this, venture creation center. So they're welcoming private industry, government, and they're inviting their researchers to really work together. And they have some kind of funky mid-century classrooms that work as great low-cost startup space. There's about 33 companies there, and a third of them are in life science. There's also just a fabulous kind of interesting, drone facility for some defense technologies. But in terms of what you have there as a resource in town, right up the road, and the willingness to partner is super exciting. And I just wanted that to be kind of one of our big takeaways if you're, listening to this. So I'll go to the next slide, which is kind of the last takeaway, is to share with you not only the existing industry clusters here in town, but the fact that we are proactively working to cultivate these and enhance these and making these our target industries for the town. So obviously you can see them here. Life science is our top, only because we already have a strong cluster. Stephanie knows, Middlesex and Route 3 is the second largest cluster outside of Cambridge, which is amazing. If you look at, the communities down this area, all within that range. And, right down the road, there's Millipore Sigma. Sarepta, I happen to know some top level executives there who had worked also at Shire and Takeda. When I was in Lexington, they're doing some exciting stuff out there, and they're also looking to grow. Additive manufacturing is our second here. Very different than kind of the life science, very manufacturing oriented, but which is interesting now because as the pandemic has exposed a lot of the supply and production that has kind of gone global. There's a real interest to bring that back and try to be more local. And one way to do that is to invest in some of your additive manufacturing capabilities so you can actually produce things a lot more locally. I'll speak to a couple of them, but right now we have Desktop Metal, Vulcan Forms, Digital Alloys, and Poly6, all right in Lexington. Huge growth potential there. We also have, not to forget, on the healthcare front, Leahy, a research hospital, and at any one time, they're running about 300 scientific experiments there. And then tech. I mean, those are the guys that you see from the freeway, Oracle, Salesforce, Microsoft, huge tech companies. Obviously, I think it's something for us to be thinking about because those jobs have been a little bit more portable, as we've seen now, and how sticky that behavior becomes going forward will be interesting. We all talked about, more working from home, but we recognize that, and we see that there will still be viability to still have at least some presence, in town. So the next couple slides are just two more. I just wanted again to highlight Sarepta, which is a gene therapy. They focus on rare diseases, and these guys, Duchenne is kind of their main disease that they focus on, but they're growing, and they're kind of a demonstration of what we're seeing, or model of what we're seeing, and you've probably heard about it from your industry analysts, is the hub and spoke concept. Their main headquarters might be in Cambridge, but they're growing for more space. And where does that take place? It's someplace where, oops, you can keep going back. You get someplace where, the access to talent, like Pete said, is accessible, and it's, within a reasonable driving distance. And the talent and the education is at a high level. And And then likewise, Vulcan Forms, which is a 3D manufacturing company, hub and spoke again, headquarters in Burlington, but they're looking for more manufacturing space, and they'll look around. If it's here, that's great. If it's outside, it's still great because they are still keeping their headquarters here, again, because of the talent and accessibility that Burlington offers. So those are just kind of two examples of some exciting businesses to keep an eye on. And the next couple slides are just some, projects that we have in the pipeline. And if we go to this, we have a Nordblom project, a lab office conversion. We have a Gutierrez project that's permitted. And I put it sandwiched it in the middle of Burlington Mall, because I don't want people to forget that, the mall is a huge driver, not only as a regional destination point, but they have the potential to be an exciting next generation of space and placemaking. And we're working with them. We've talked to the head of Simons and Macy's, and we will be taking the lead on some regulatory framework that starts to outline a village concept with mixed use, office, retail, restaurant, and housing at this site. We'll go to the next site. And lastly, again, we have a couple other permitted projects, existing space by Gutierrez and the Burlington Summit. And that's the one who just submitted a site plan. And sandwiched again around, a project that you'll hear a little bit more about later, is 300 housing units that right down in 3rd Avenue that's been permitted by Nordblom. And again, I think this the spotlights on these properties demonstrates exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to be comprehensive in our approach. We're thinking about the next generation of the mall. We're acknowledging that we need housing options, and we're really supporting this with the anchors in life science, additive manufacturing, healthcare, and technology. So with that, I'd like to invite Lynn to speak a little bit more on how you can, that's me. So you can always reach me if you need me. I'd like to invite Lynn to speak a little bit, and she can speak to our history with the tax incentive program and how that would, how that works, because she's worked here in town doing that kind of project. Lynn. She's there.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Thank you, Lynn.
Melissa, that was fabulous. That was so great, so positive, and congratulations on all the work in Burlington. First of all, I'd like to say it's so great to be part of connecting with the attendees today, and thank you so much for attending this morning, and hopefully you'll have some great questions for us at the end. So I'm going to be chatting about tax incentives during the pandemic and beyond. So just got a few slides to give you a snapshot of how these tax incentives work. And so again, business development strategies, we're a government incentives consulting firm, tax incentives consulting firm, and we actually assist companies to identify, negotiate, and secure tax incentives. And we'll be sharing some great Massachusetts success stories, actually one of them in Burlington. And so what we're trying to do is while companies are trying to make corporate real estate decisions, we're trying to help them offset their project costs and work with them to make these decisions on real estate, on existing buildings, should they put a shovel in the ground if they're growing and expanding. So that's really what the focus is here. The primary industries that we serve, a lot like Burlington, are manufacturing, life science, innovation, technology, research and development, and even as Pete mentioned, lots and lots of distribution out there. It seems that a lot of these distributors are on every street corner. So we're also focused on that as an industry. And so it's really about helping companies to offset their project costs. We know that when we first start working with companies, they may have a budget. By the time we're a week or even a couple of months goes by, the price tag keeps increasing. So again, the companies are very interested in trying to offset that and reduce these project costs. As you may know, yes, due to Stephanie's introduction of me, thank you, Stephanie Cronin. I worked at MOBD and then was recruited by Ernst & Young. We're celebrating our 17th year in business. I don't know where the time has gone. We have a team of 10, anywhere from a TIF attorney to a CPA to a local assessor, which is very essential. We're placing values of new buildings. Again, we have an assessor that is placing values on the projections of these new buildings, whether it's 50,000 square feet, 400,000 square feet and beyond. It's quite essential. And then all of our other team members are our former state and local government officials. But Stephanie Cronin, yes, she was my former colleague at MOBD and was also on our team at the early years for about 6 or 7 years. And Stephanie's was so instrumental in helping us build business development strategies. So thank you, Stephanie. And congratulations on all your success as well with the Middlesex 3 initiative. So next slide, please. So this is what we're going to chat about today. Some of the potential state and local programs that are available, incentives, but we represent one particular program known as the state's Economic Development Incentive Program. This program was enacted by the state legislature back in 1993 and has been really almost a national model for tax incentive programs. Again, all across the US, Massachusetts really has a program that can be quite lucrative for businesses. And it is administered by the Mass Office of Business Development. My former colleague, Peter Milano, who I'm sure many of you know, is basically the state director, as I call him, the state director, a senior regional director with the Mass Office of Business Development. So always enjoy working with Peter on these projects. So we're going to be talking about state tax credits, abandoned building tax deductions, TIFs, which may be the popular program that you may be familiar with. However, in between 2009 and 2018, there were sweeping changes with this program, legislative changes. You may have heard of the alphabet soup: economic target areas, economic opportunity areas, ETAs, EOAs, no longer required. So I guess that's the good news there. Next slide, please. So talking about project eligibility, companies, hear about the program. They want to know, are they eligible? Getting phone calls from whether it's developers, real estate brokers, construction companies, architects, they're trying to help their clients save cash. And so the program is available to businesses that are expanding. And you'll see on the left some of the bullets: a company that may be considering relocating their operations, could be from one community to another community in Massachusetts, obviously from out of state. A company that may be in an existing building that has plans to renovate a portion that may be underutilized. And as well as questions come up many times, I'm leasing space. My plan is to lease space, not purchase space. Am I eligible? And the answer is yes, because the benefits go to the company that's creating the jobs and that's paying the real estate taxes. And we know if it's a lease, typically it's a triple net lease, so then the tenant is responsible. So under this program, it's very tenant driven, company driven, whether it's a manufacturer, life science, innovation, technology company. So it's typically the end user. And it's really focused on single occupant buildings versus multi-tenanted buildings. Again, because as you'll hear, we need to see new taxes being generated as into the community as a result of increased assessed value. So therefore, multi-tenant buildings really don't work. However, for developers, I know there are many developers that are viewing this presentation. If it's a very large scale building, we'll say the building is 400,000 square feet, 500,000 square feet, or something large, it's sitting vacant, you're trying to attract tenants, there could be opportunities for the developer to apply for potential tax incentives. But typically the intent of the program is for the end user, the job creator. And again, for developers, even if a developer has an existing building trying to attract a tenant, it's a great marketing tool for a developer to kind of like dangle the carrot and come to my building, there are potential tax incentives in place or could be in place. Again, companies are trying to make corporate real estate decisions. Companies don't know about these programs. I know the program's been up and running since 1993, but to me, at times, the phone calls that we receive, it still appears that these are mystery programs. And it's all about timing. On the right, you'll see some of the check marks for companies that are interested in applying for the program. It's about, and it's all about certain state criteria, but it's primarily about job creation. Companies must be creating new jobs. And under the Massachusetts general law, how many new jobs? One new permanent full-time job must be created as a result of an expansion, as well as job creation, of course. And generating new real estate investment, which equals bringing new tax revenue to the municipality. So that's a key. Again, when you think about buildings, if there's an existing building, there needs to be some type of substantial spend to increase the assessed value of that building to bring new tax revenue. So that's really the criteria. And there is some other state criteria as well. But what is the most essential in the whole program as far as companies being eligible is timing. Because of course, companies need to have some type of leverage. As you will hear, all of these programs require state and local approvals. Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, town meeting. And for 1 minute, if whether it's a local official or a town meeting resident feels that this is a done deal because there's already a signed lease or you've already closed on the property, it's unlikely that you'd be able to pursue tax incentives. So again, it's all about timing. And unfortunately, if you do not apply within the proper time frame, you could leave cash on the table. And when CEOs find out about this, CFOs, they're not too happy. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go into these in detail due to timing. And but basically, again, there are state tax credits. And typically, if a company is a manufacturer, they would be eligible for the 3% investment tax credit if they're a designated manufacturer by the Department of Revenue. So there's really no double dipping. It's one tax incentive or another. There's also the Mass Life Science tax credit in the Massachusetts Life Science Center. They have many programs available for life science companies. And then the most important one that's probably the most popular is a TIF. And a TIF is which is the third bullet down. A TIF is a discount on future taxes. And the beauty about a TIF is the city or town doesn't lose a dime on the existing taxes. So it's a minimum of 5 years, maximum of 20 years, and it can go up to 100% in any given year. And so next slide, please. So, and of course, there's a process. It's all locally driven. And of course, now during the pandemic, everything's virtual. Town meetings are being held, whether it's Board of Selectmen meetings, Finance Committee, town meetings are actually, some are live in the high schools, but actually I was at a town meeting on Monday night, which was virtual. So there's been a lot of changes. And before So there is a process. Town meeting has the final approval with any TIF. And then, of course, the state must approve it as well. As far as Burlington, Burlington has been a great town to work with. They've been very open to encouraging and attracting new business development. And based on my experience, I would have to say it's due to their great leadership. Paul Sagarino, the town manager, worked with him in the past. Again, he's very pro-business Board of Selectmen. And then Melisa, you're being selected as the new Economic Development Director was the right choice, especially with such a positive vision that you have for the town of Burlington. And so one of the, as Melissa mentioned, a great company is Millipore Sigma. We actually assisted them with a TIF project for their expansion a few years back. So certainly this is a great success story. And just in closing, the next slides, we'll just go through them very quickly. Here's another success story in the Northeast in Lowell. You'll see this was an expansion office space. What a great addition, the largest advanced manufacturer in the city of Lowell. Next slide, please. And this, I love showcasing Analog Devices. They are in their final phase of construction. What a phenomenal design. This is Baker Design here in Massachusetts. Phenomenal. This is a company that was considering expanding elsewhere. Their corporate headquarters were in Norwood. They've relocated them to Wilmington, the corporate headquarters. And so this is a new expansion, major expansion, $150 million private investment for research and development office and hub. And you can see the benefits that they received. Phenomenal building. Next slide and last slide. And this is Vicor in Andover. And this project was recent for tax incentives as well. And they are under construction. You know, a lot of these companies were, during the pandemic, were on hold with construction, but this project is moving forward. What a great design by Gorman Richardson Lewis Architects. Shout out to Scott Richardson. I believe he might be attending this morning. So what a fabulous building. So that concludes tax incentives, and hopefully you found it beneficial. Thanks.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. Those are great presentations. A lot of information packed in there, and I know we have really a little under 10 minutes to try to unpack all that information, which might be a challenge. But I do have a couple of questions that have come in, and there have been some questions through the registration as well too. And one was a simple one, and I want to throw out to the attendees, if you have questions, this is your time. We probably have time for one or two, so please send them over. A really quick one is, will these presentations be available? Can we send them to the attendees? And your contact information as well too. I'm going to take that as a yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. And so there were a number of questions that came in through the registration that focused on questions about COVID as well as life sciences. And so we talked a little bit about what the town, what's going on now, but maybe we can focus a little bit about the future as well too. And I'd like to focus on life sciences first. And I have a number of questions. I'm going to throw them all out at you, and then they kind of all weave together. But really, Pete, maybe you can talk more about the trends of life sciences, as well as Melissa, we can talk about Burlington plans to continue to attract more life science companies to the area. Will Burlington try to reposition office space for a life science focus? I know you had a couple of examples out there. And our landlords, I know we have a number of real estate folks there, are they willing to assist financially to support this type of conversion? And Lynn, are there other incentive packages that you didn't touch upon as well that could help with this? And can we also talk a little bit more about the utilities, the infrastructure that could support the change in this direction, or are they better suited for medical office and care facilities? So Pete, maybe you want to start off and just kind of give us a general overview.
Life sciences is looking very good in Massachusetts. Of course, it's really the epicenter of the research and development community. And on the manufacturing side, in the life sciences, it is really become globally the central location for biologics manufacturing, gene therapy manufacturing, all that very cutting edge manufacturing that we see in the industry is happening in Massachusetts, and there are a lot of opportunities out there now. And so life sciences is still a very, very, very good bet for Massachusetts, and we're really seeing that activity. And just in terms of what Burlington has done to position itself for the life sciences, it really done an outstanding job. Those boring issues like water, Melissa, incredibly important for the life sciences, especially on the manufacturing side. And in terms of some of the buildings, you had listed 700 Summit, 4 Burlington Woods, 43 South Ave. These are very well positioned properties for the life sciences. So Burlington is really in an advantaged position, I think, for the life sciences, as is really the whole corridor, Stephanie. So that's a couple minutes on the life sciences.
And Stephanie, I mean, I can add to that. I mean, I think part of what today was about was to kind of share with you at least the 2 big things that I kind of, articulated. Number 2 being that zoning, and then that 3rd one being the water infrastructure. I mean, I think that not only speaks to the forward thinking, but it also speaks to, we're putting our money where our mouth is on that. It's not just talk. There was active land use changes. There's active $10 million have already been approved to the water investment. So those are real steps that we've taken. On the soft side, we're also thinking about what is in our control, because, as a local government, and most people here know, in terms of, deciding for some building that should be lab office, that's a little outside our control, right? But what we can control was land use policy, investment infrastructure. And we're starting to work on a specific kind of website that will be focused entirely on commercial. We got the grant for workforce development and training for our residents. So we're trying to think, more holistically and be very kind of conscious of what we have control over and put our efforts in those areas.
Great, thank you. And I see Rick's here as well. Rick, do I have time for one more question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, good. Because I know we've got a number of COVID questions as well too, but I want to actually focus on Gary Campbell's question in terms of housing. Are there particular housing types that are underrepresented in Burlington and therefore much needed? I know we haven't really talked about this earlier. Melissa.
Right. I mean, I think in general, the majority of you can see the map, the majority of the community is designated for single family homes, right? And for the most part, the community cherishes that wants to be preserved and enhanced. I think if you start looking in the additional corridors where there is commercial, that's where we want to focus on our housing options, whether it be multifamily, townhouse, and create variation so people can stay in town, move to town, and have those options. We meet our affordability requirement by the state, but I know we have a team of housing advocates that has pushed so that 300 unit project, they're pushing to make that more affordable than the state requirement. So we're still trying to meet the need on affordability and size, I would say, just form of housing, so you can give people options. And I think that permitted project down in 3rd Avenue is an example of us being willing to, kind of, support that and use residential as a strategic kind of element to support our retail and get people closer to their jobs so they're not in their car all day. And I think that's a big thing, is what we think of, the mall, Burlington Mall Road and the mall site up to Leahy. That's an amazing corridor that has a lot of potential for some, maybe form-based code that, we want to allow the flexibility of use, but we want to encourage that diversification.
Great, thank you. And Rick, I could go on with a number of questions, but perhaps it might be better to stop here right now. And I know just a few more things before I turn it over. I know Melissa's been doing a great job, wonderful job as the new Economic Development Director. Paul Sagarino, you got a great leader there as well too. A great board of selectmen. I also want to give a shout out to Kristen Kasner, who I give her a lot of credit, and she's been doing a fabulous job in really bringing the public and the private sector together and just doing a nice job moving forward some of the planning, which is the crux of all of this. So with that, I think I lost my train of thought. So Rick, I'm going to have to turn it back over to you.
Well, I want to thank you all. Excellent information. Two of the things that I take away from this whole webinar, one was never wear a black sport coat with a Zoom background. The second is that the town of Burlington is open for business. They have so much to offer, and they have all of the information. It's readily available. So people that would want to contact Melissa or someone at the town hall, they're open, they're available to give you that information. And, as you could see from the slides they presented, there's a lot they offer. So I want to ask Melissa, could you just give us your contact information one more time? So people that are listening, they could contact you.
Sure. It's Melisa Tintocalis, and we'll send it out, I think, to everyone who kind of signed up here. But you should find it on the website. It's my first initial, Melisa M. Tintocalis at burlington.org. And I think that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. You can also try the phone number, 781-505-1186.
And, you brought together a great team, and anyone that's interested in doing any kind of developing in Massachusetts or moving their corporation or even opening up a new corporation in the state, you have to contact Peter. And Peter, how would they get in touch with you?
It's massecon.com. All our contact information is there, and feel free to give us a call. It's an exciting period right now, so look forward to new interest.
And don't even attempt to open a new business without getting information on tax information that you can benefit from. And that would be with Lynn. Lynn, you have to give out your information. It's very important.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to make it short. Lynn. Thank God my last name isn't involved. Lynn at business-development-strategies.com, but it's on our website as well.
Yeah, and thank you, Lynn. Yeah, I just want to, kind of leave everyone as kind of people depart, but I'm excited to kind of bring these, obviously, Rick, thank you for kind of helping to curate. But, in terms of just, Stephanie representing, our regional approach, MassEcon, connecting to people like me. Thank you, Pete. And then Lynn, creating possibilities for folks. It's not always going to be guaranteed. She said there's a lot of, local approvals, but, the idea is if you're in those target industries and you're bringing something of value to the community, we are open. So, I mean, I think in the whole, I hope people got that as well.
And we can't forget to mention Stephanie Cronin, because that whole region, anyone that does want to do anything in the region, they should contact Stephanie, because she's a great asset for the Middlesex region, for any kind of developer, construction, companies that are looking to have an interest in moving into the area. So Stephanie, how would they get in touch with you?
Oh,
Middlesex Street?
And I'll put my contact information here as well too. I put Lynn's, Pete's, and Melissa's down there. But one thing I do want to say is this is a great region, and I think it's a really small community. Economic development in general is a small community, and we work well together. I think we all just really like each other, but I think we do collaborate well. So if reach out to any of us, and I think we can help. But I'll put my information. It's scronin@middlesex3.com. So, and thank you, Rick, Melissa, Pete, Lynn, you guys have been a great panel. So thank you for your time today.
And I also would like to mention that this is recorded. So this will be available to watch or again and again and again. If you have no life, you'd be more than welcome to watch it as many times as you want. It will be on nerej.com/video. Also on the NEREJ YouTube channel. And I'm not sure if Melissa is planning on having it available on.
Yeah, it'll be up on our new website soon. So.
Okay. So you can watch it over again, and you can get the information. Also find the contact information there. If you have trouble finding it there, you're always welcome to contact me, Rick Kaplan, at rkaplan@nerej.com, and I'll be more than happy to forward you all the speakers and the moderators' contact information. I want to thank you all. Excellent job. Lots of great information. And I want to wish everyone a happy and safe Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching today's interview. If you'd like to be a guest, a sponsor, or even advertise in the New England Real Estate Journal, you'll find our contact information in the description box below. You can also find all our social media platforms so you can follow us, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.